All right, so we're here on this this somewhat cloudy and foggy Rosarito morning because the video didn't record last night from last night's class. So so I'm just going to do a little reshoot here so that the folks who wanted this video can actually get their hands on it. Basically, what we worked in this class, it was two components to this class. We had a myofascial release component, and then the second part of the class was focused more on isometrics in our primary positions, our standing, active standing, our hinge, plank, lunges, and then dead bug is what we got in. I'm going to see if I could squeeze in a couple more for this recording. So, excuse me. What I'm going to take you through first is a little sequence that I go through for myofascial release with a tennis ball or with any torture device of your choosing. I also have some access here to melt method balls. Basically, just balls of various sizes and densities that you can release adhesions with. And then if you're really into these torture objects, you know, you can bring in objects like this. It is worth saying that density doesn't infer effectiveness. So you get the same benefit with something that's a little bit softer without the risk of doing damage to hard connective tissue. So so you're finding a lot of universities and PT offices and places like that going to more softer medium. So we're going to use a tennis ball. The place that I always start off with is my feet. So I'm going to move through just a little kind of sequence that I go through to release the feet. We're going to place our tennis ball on the ground, and then all we're going to do is we're just going to roll right down the center of the foot, right down the midline of the foot, just in the arch area. So I'm rolling from basically where the balls of the feet begin to the front of the area you would call the heel. It's like this 7-inch range for my feet. Right down the center, and it feels great. So I'm just giving this a few passes here. I adjust my mic. And then status, still important, is we're going to roll to the outside edge of the foot, the outside edge of the foot. Great. Now we're going to move to the inner arch of the foot. This aspect of the foot feels awesome. So we'll roll from where the heel begins to where the big toe knuckle meets the arch on the inside arch. Good. And while I'm doing this, or while you're doing this, if you feel any spots that feel particularly tense, tight, you can spend a little bit of time there and just apply static pressure downward, or I like to do little circles. There's one spot that's pretty universal for folks in terms of feeling tense or tight. If you go where the arch meets the inside ball of the foot, you'll find that there's a little sticky point in there. So I like to spend time right there, right where the inside arch meets the big toe knuckle. Apply pressure downward, try to relax my toes. I'll do little small circles around that tight area. Great. And now we're ready to move to the heel. So I'm going to place the tennis ball right at the center of my heel to begin with. Just apply downward pressure. And then I'll make circles around the outer edge of the heel. Just around the outer edge of the heel. Good. And you can change directions from clockwise to counterclockwise, just like I'm doing, whenever you want. Good. This is a really good passive balance exercise. If you need to use a chair, then that's fine, just for a little balance. What I do recommend if you're using an object for balance is you try to keep a light, kind of a tenuous hold onto it, so you only use the chair when you need it instead of fully relying on it, just so you can still strengthen stabilizers in the ankle. Good. Place your heel down on the ground now, and the heel is going to be our pivot point as we cross fiber from the inside ball of foot, that's a big toe knuckle, to the outside edge of the foot. Right along the forefoot, right underneath the knuckles of the foot, the balls of the feet. I'm going right to left, right to left. And the whole idea here is I'm trying to spread the bones of the foot. I'm trying to spread the metatarsals. If you've worked with me in the past 3 years, you're pretty used to me doing this at this point. This is I've shown everyone this. Good. And now we'll place the heel down onto the mat, and you want to place your first 3 or 4 toes on top of the ball, just the toes. And you want to think about squeezing the ball with your big toe, second toe, third toe, ring toe, without placing the weight of your body down onto the ball to achieve the squeeze. You're only squeezing using the musculature, the integrity of the foot. A little strengthening exercise. Great. And so now we'll do circles, just around, just a general roll throughout the foot. And then you can stand evenly on both feet just to get a little assessment. And what you'll feel here is you'll feel that, and even if you look at your feet, you'll see that the foot that you just rolled has a little bit more spread to it. It's able to express itself more under load. You can feel a really big difference in the feet just by placing your weight evenly on both feet. And another little assessment you can do is you can roll down as far as your body wants to go. Let yourself hang with fairly straight knees. And I just like to shift my weight from one foot to the other. And what this allows you to do is feel the muscles in your legs stretching. And what you might notice is the foot that you just rolled, the muscles in the lower aspect of the corresponding leg will also feel more mobile. They'll also feel like they have a little bit more range of motion than the foot you didn't roll. And this is just because of a concept called irradiation. When you can release out tension in the distal, the far ends of the body, you also contribute to releasing tension further up the limb. So fun little fact there. Let's do the other foot now that we have this protocol down. So again, we're going center arch first. Yeah. Another interesting thing I like to mention is when I'm working with folks, you can look at somebody's hands and feet, and based on their function or dysfunction, you can kind of tell that they infer dysfunction closer toward the center of the body. What I mean by that is folks with feet that can't fully express themselves, or that have lost integrity or seem very tight, usually that means that there's going to be some sort of dysfunction in the ankle or the knee or the hip. And if there's dysfunction in the ankle, knee, and hip, there's going to be some sort of compensation that the body does in and along the spine. Same for the hands. If somebody doesn't have full expression in their hands, you can almost bet that there's going to be dysfunction in the wrist, elbows, shoulder. So it's just a very interesting thing. This is why I really try to encourage good habits with our hands and feet. just because healthy hands, healthy feet, healthy limbs. So rolling center arch. Now I'm going to go to the outside edge, the blade edge of my left foot. Great. You may not feel a lot here, but we're just trying to mobilize that tissue. And then I'm going to go inside arch of foot. Great. Spending a little bit of time in that trigger point area where the inside arch meets the big toe knuckle. You might notice that one foot is a little bit more tender, a little tighter than another foot. Don't panic, that's normal. Good. Okay, so let's go to the heel. Just applying downward pressure on top of the ball at the center of the heel. You can articulate the ankle while you have that pressure down. And then we'll do wide circles around the outside edge of the foot. Great. This is what I call a feels good donut. Feels good, don't it? That was stupid, I know. So, all right, we'll bring our heel down on the mat. That's our pivot point now. And we're cross fibering from the big toe knuckle to the pinky toe knuckle. And again, what we want to focus on is trying to spread the bones of the foot. We're encouraging metatarsal spread here. Spending a little time where you might feel some adhesion or tightness. Great. And then after we do this cross fibering action, heel stays down and first 3 or 4 toes on the ball, but not your weight. And then we're just going to squeeze and squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Just until we start to feel a little bit of work at the bottom of the foot. If you want extra credit, you can really fully extend and spread your toes open and then squeeze. Fully spread and extend the toes open. And squeeze. That's good. Before just rolling out the foot. Great. Excellent. And there we go. So we have released the feet. Just take a little bit of a moment, walk around, see how you feel. A lot of the time what people notice is that they feel like they have more of their feet or foot on the ground with each step they take. But it also feels like the arch is lifted a little bit more. So we have this excellent balance between this soft tension, this release, and then this good tension, right? This integrity in the foot. So that's the whole point here, is we're trying to explore that balance. Check this big old guy out. That's a giant bird there. So, all right, so we just released out the feet. I'm going to go to the distal ends of the body, so I want to work the hands next, okay? We're going to work on releasing the hands. Here's the quick pattern. We're going to do a circle around the palm, yeah? And then we're going to do a circle around the thumb pad. And then we're going to cross fiber the knuckles. And then we're going to spread the fingers on both hands. So we'll go through that. We'll go through that in person, obviously, right here. I like to take a position on my knees. If that's not comfortable for you, you can also go seated, like so. And you can even do this at a table if that's better for you. Okay, so the ball is down. Again, we're just doing a wide sweeping outside circle around the palm of the hand. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this, right? Some people like a little more pressure. That's me. So you can just use the weight or the strength of your arm to try to apply pressure downward on the ball. You want to try to keep your hand as relaxed as possible, so you're not resisting the myofascial release here. So, good. Another way that you can apply load is I like to take my free hand and rest it down. So I'm using both hands to apply pressure down on the ball. I can also relax my rolling hand better. And you can go in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction. Good. Now I'm going to go with the thumb pad here. Same concept. You can just do this with a solo hand, or you can use both hands. I'm going along the outer edge of my thumb pad, spending a little bit of time right here also, kind of on the side of the thumb pad, just because there's some adhesion, some knots or tension in there. This is great. Just a few times around. And then, just like we did with the foot, we're going to cross fiber the knuckles. So palm will kind of be our pivot point, and we're going to roll the ball from the index finger to the pinky knuckle. And the whole idea is to try and relax that hand so that we can get that spread of the bones of the hand. Just trying to create a little space in there for mobility. Good. It's a nice idea to create space in certain parts of the body before you work on creating integrity or strengthening, just so the muscle can express itself. Now, we're moving toward the thumbs. And so I'm going to come a little closer just so you can see what we're going for here. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to roll the ball along the length of my thumb while I'm using my free hand to try to stretch my thumb on the ball. Almost as if my thumb is almost like a piece of dough that I'm trying to make longer. I'm pushing down and spreading the thumb over the ball while I'm rolling the ball along my thumb or any finger. And what we're trying to go for is trying to relax the finger. We're trying to create some space in the finger when we're doing this. So again, I'll try to cue this verbally as good as I can. Starting with the ball underneath your thumb pad, your free hand is going on top of your thumb. You're then going to roll the ball along the underside of the thumb as your free hand is trying to stretch the finger all the way to the tip of the finger. And then you go back and stretch the thumb a little bit more. This is called traction. We're trying to stretch or make longer. Okay, index finger, same concept. So I'm starting at the index finger knuckle. I'm using my free hand to stretch the index finger long. 2 or 3 times. Okay. Feels really good. You might not feel it at first. Do it a few times though. Let the tissues get used to the action and you'll start to feel it. So now we're going to go index finger. Index finger. Index finger. Index finger. Good. Or middle. Sorry, I said index, but I meant middle. Okay, and then I'm going to go ring a few times. Knuckle to ring fingertip as my free hand is stretching my ring finger. Good. And then we've got pinky. And I'm going to do this a few times. 3. But you could do this more than 3 times if you wanted to. Okay, so we've got the hand, one hand released, and so we'll just do a quick post-assessment just to see what we've done. One of the post-assessments I like to do is have my hands forward, fingertips spread wide, and I like to close and open my hands really quickly. Now the hand that I just rolled feels a lot freer. I feel like I have better range of motion even when I'm circling my wrists. So it's these little things, when done consistently, that make a tremendous difference in our quality of life, especially over the long term too, because the hands and the feet tend to curl up with time. So, okay, let's breeze through the second hand. This, for me, it's my left. I'm going to start with these big, wide, sweeping circles around the outer perimeter of my hand. You might have just heard my thumb crack. Oops. This is nice. A little myofascial release in the morning. The sun is going to pop at some point, so I'm sure I'm really going to be squinting in this video toward the end. This is a pretty common Rosarito morning. Foggy, a little cool. Good. So we're going around big circles in the palm. Now we're going to go to this thumb pad area. Same concept. Again, you can just do this single-handedly, or you can do this with both hands. It really just depends on how much pressure you like or can take. It's a really good idea to not make yourself uncomfortable. This is not a practice where doing something really hard once is going to infer any major benefit. This is a practice where consistency of action really kind of makes a big difference. You know, somebody's dealing with something nagging, I'll ask how they're treating it. Are they, you know, and they'll say they're doing something. I'll ask them, well, are you doing it every day? You know, and usually the answer is no. And that's why that thing might be nagging. So, and I'm guilty of that myself too. So, all right, we're going to go now, thumb. Not all the time, but sometimes I'm guilty of that. So, so we're going to take the thumb knuckle. Oh, excuse me. We're cross fibering. So the palm goes down onto the ground, and we're using our free hand to try to spread our knuckles over the ball. We did this with our feet. We do this with our hands as well. Just a few times here. Remember, no two sides are alike. So use that higher sensitivity to try to notice if there's a difference between sides anytime you're doing something. We're going to go with that spreading, that stretching, that tractioning of the fingers. So I'm placing my thumb knuckle on top of the tennis ball. I'm using my free hand to apply pressure down and out as I roll the ball underneath my thumb and try to relax my rolling hand, my rolling thumb. And I'm going to do that 2 more times. Boom. Great. Now I'm just doing this for brevity now, a few times. Index finger is next. 1 and 2. Yep. And 3. Good. Middle finger, 1 and 2 and 3. Craziest thing we noticed when Eden was born was how long her fingers were. She has such long fingers. I've never seen that on a baby before. And then we'll go ring finger. And then we'll go pinky finger. And now we'll just, again, do a post-mobility assessment, opening, closing the hands, seeing how they feel, seeing how the wrists feel. There will be a minor improvement in perceived mobility just from that little bit of mobilization. But in order to have that sustained, it does have to be consistent, like I said earlier. But good for now, huh? Yeah, awesome. So we've just done some myofascial release, myofascial release for the feet and for the hands. The next thing I want to focus on is the neck. So with the neck, really anytime we're doing this self-myofascial release with a ball, we want to be mindful of avoiding bony areas. And so what I mean by that in our instance here is we don't want to roll the spine, okay? There we go. What we want to do is we want to roll from the outside of the spine, as close to the spine as you can get. Can you see? Yeah, as close to the spine as you can get. But then we want to roll, we want to ride, we want to follow, travel along the base of the skull, all the way to behind the ear. If you use your finger to palpate, to just feel behind your earlobe, you'll feel definitely a bony area. And if you kind of just drag your finger down, you'll start to feel where muscle interfaces with that bony area behind the ear. So we want to roll the ball right along that muscle bone interface, more on the muscle side of it. This is where a lot of adhesion and tension will start to build and originate. So the ball will travel here. We're going to do this on the ground. And so I don't have hair, so it's a little easier for me. For folks with hair, you want to use your index finger and thumb to sort of corral the ball in place. As you do this, no action with your head. Okay? It's a little awkward at first, but you'll get the hang of it as you do this more and more. I'm going to add to this as well. So I'm going to lay down. I'm starting just outside of the spine, and I'm using my index finger and thumb to corral the ball. Now, the weight of your head might just be enough for you. You might just say, oh, okay, that'll do, thanks. What you can also do, if you like a little bit more, is use your free hand on your forehead to press your head down into the ball. And now here we are. We're going to do this no action. Roll all along the base of the skull, just behind the ear, and then back. And you may need to make little micro adjustments along the way. Good. Excellent. You can spend time at a spot that feels particularly tight for you today. So right where the bone behind my ear meets all this muscle at my neck, I got a little adhesion, so I'm just spending time there. And I'm going to give it a few good passes. Good. I'm going to readjust my position. Just feels excellent. Good. Let's roll the other side now. Okay, so I'm taking the ball, placing it now to the left side for me. The left side, just outside of my spinal column. I'm using my left hand now to corral the ball, keep it in place. And now I'm using my right hand, my free hand, to just roll beneath the base of the spine. Now, a couple ways you can optimize this. If your head is tilted back, it's going to be almost impossible to keep the ball where it is and really get a good release. So what you want to try to do is draw your chin in toward your spine and try to make the back of your neck long. We're trying to really reveal or open up as much of this neck tissue as possible. The left side is my tighter side. Good. A few more passes here. Good. And then you can roll to your side and press yourself up. And we'll just do a post-assess here. Wow. That one's a real bang for your buck. Well, so excellent. So we've mobilized feet, we've mobilized hands, we've mobilized neck and occiput. So now I want to just give you a few tips for mobilizing the muscles of the chest with a tennis ball. This one I tend to do more manually with my hands. You might be able to load it up on the ground, but in this case, this is the best way for me to kind of get these muscles. Now, we might feel a lot of soreness maybe in the back, and yes, tension in the muscles of the back, but the muscles that I'm beginning to, well, not beginning, the muscles that I tend to be more concerned about when I see tightness are the muscles of the front. For most of us nowadays, just because sedentary lives, because of just our Western lifestyle, we end up sort of in this this kyphotic rounding of the spine, which I'm exaggerating. But we also internally rotate our shoulders and we cross our legs. And what this does is just shortens all of the fascia and the muscles at the front of the body, the chest, the abdominal muscles, the psoas, and this ends up putting us in this really compressed position, which yes, is bad for our spinal column, bad for our tone and our musculature, but it's also really bad for our ability to breathe freely and deeply and completely, using the rib cage in this kind of 360 action when we breathe, as we should. But we don't anymore. You know, our breaths are really shallow and short because our rib cage cannot expand with each breath. So we're deoxygenated as well, and so are our organs, and our organs are also being squeezed. So it's this really vicious cycle for our health and wellness that kind of all starts from this real tightness in the front. And so we mobilize our chest muscles. Yes? Yes. So we take a tennis ball. You can do this just neutral, like this. I like to start underneath the collarbone. Hitting the mic here, I recognize that. You're traveling along the bottom of the collarbone on the muscle, not the bone. And if you want to get a little bit more out of this, you can hold onto a door jamb. You can also just straighten out your arm and bring it behind you to help spread, reveal that muscle. Now you're opening that muscle, but we don't want to tighten it because then we're resisting the myofascial release. We're trying to get this ball to penetrate the tissue a little bit here. I like to also rub the ball instead of roll the ball so that we're stretching the skin in this myofascial release in the chest. Ooh, it's intense. And now we can go right where the arm and the pectoralis muscle kind of meet. I'm holding onto the ball. I'm pressing it into the muscle, and I'm just doing little circles. Good. Now, I'm going to travel down the midline, not on the breastplate, not on the upper body of the sternum or the lower body of the sternum, just on the muscle, the soft tissue that interfaces with the sternum. Again, holding onto a door jamb, holding onto an object that's grounded, rooted, or, you know, bringing the arm behind you can help just reveal this tissue a little bit more. Yeah. Great. And now I'm going to go right where the ribs meet the chest, so to speak, even though the ribs and the chest are the same thing. Good. And now we're going to get the center of the pectoralis. Not soft tissue, right? Not breast tissue. You can kind of get muscle tissue or feel muscle tissue right in the center of the pec, wherever that is for you. Good. All right, so let's get that other side now. Same idea. You're rolling or dragging the ball just underneath your collarbone. I'm going to let this hang for a minute. Fantastic. Okay, let's hit that shoulder chest interface. Good. Really spreading the fingers wide is even going to contribute to how much release or sensation of release you get in the shoulder. Good. So let's now go to the just outside the sternum here, rolling or dragging. Whatever feels best for you. And by best, I mean that fine line between extremely pleasant and somewhat unpleasant. Good. Just get underneath the tissue, muscle or breast tissue. Try to find the muscle there, just where the ribs meet the area you call the chest. Good. And then rolling along the body of the pec muscles. Good. You can also tap or drag. Excellent. Good. So we're shaking that all off. I like to open out the arms and just do an assessment, crossing my arms over each other oppositely. Right over left, left over right. I want to hit the scapular muscles. These are the muscles of the shoulder blades, around the shoulder blades. So the place that I like to start off for everybody, and then I kind of instruct you to follow your adhesions, is the rhomboids. What are the rhomboids? That's a good question. We want to go center back where the shoulder blade and the muscle tissue you feel in the middle of your back meet. And just like all of our myofascial release, we want to do this on the muscle tissue, not the bone, right? So right here, we're going to do this laying down. I'm just trying to show you so you can better see the area we're trying to get. So it's right along the shoulder blade to begin. Also going down on the mat. And I kind of have a decent sense of where the ball goes. It might take you a little bit of noodling around to find the spot, but you will feel it when you're there. It feels like muscle tissue. It doesn't feel like bone on the ball. And so one thing that I like to impress upon people is you don't need to move your body over the ball like this. You know, you don't need to drag your body over the ball when it comes to this area. What I like to do is I actually like to move my arm to get that release. So the ball is under my right side. I'm reaching my right hand up. just by doing that, that articulation alone is enough for you to go, whoa, okay, yeah, I've got tissue there. Now, I did this a little differently yesterday, but I'm going to start off actually bringing the arm down and then up. Up as high up to my ear as I can without feeling like I'm hurting myself. Yeah, good. Up and down and up and down. And so that's the drill there. And we're really, if you can relax the muscles of the back a little bit, try not to resist it. We're really sensation of massaging, the ultimate euphemism here. And then you can also go open and then across, open and then across, open and then across. And then I do big wide circles with my arm, clockwise and counterclockwise. So there's some options. And now, so excellent. You can also choose to shoulder circles, allow the ball to travel. Good. Now you can move the ball to the rotator cuff. That's a spot where the armpit meets the back of the shoulder in simple terms, right? And you can apply the same approach. So wherever you're feeling muscular tension, you place the ball on that spot, and then you try to move the arm. That's the whole concept here. Instead of trying to move your body and trying to find the right thing, right, which takes a lot of energy, this just is a lot more efficient. So take a little time for freestyling that side. Maybe finding a spot at the trapezius, that's that upper back muscle. Good. And by lifting your head, the weight of your head will assert itself down on the ball more than if your head is on the ground. So this is a little less pressure on the ball, and then lifting your head is a little more pressure on the ball. And that's all really preference for the end user, you. Good? Good. Okay, let's do that other side now, briefly. Now I'm starting at my rhomboid. That's where the inner back muscles, right? The middle inner back muscles meet the shoulder blade. I did that before. The reason why I'm doing that is that's like a pretty good home base to start with. But also, this is where I feel the most tension. If you feel it in the rotator cuffs behind the armpit, or if you feel it in the trapezius right at the top of the shoulder, start there. It's really where your tension profile is. This side is definitely tighter because getting my arm right up to my ear is fairly intense, if you know what I mean. Good. I'm starting to really squint my eyes. It may not seem like it, but the sun is really trying to come through. And also this. Bring the arm up to the ceiling or the sky, and then across the body and out. Across the body and out. Across the body and out. And now big, wide sweeping circles. Excellent. Any direction you wish. And then bring yourself up to seated or standing position. Just mobilize the shoulders and the arms, see how they feel. Take a deep breath. You might notice that you can actually take a somewhat deeper breath now because these muscles along the rib cage are freed up a little bit more. So your rib cage can expand a little bit more with each breath you take. So when it comes to the glutes, the spots that I try to tend to hit are right up along the top of the butt. So it's kind of where the butt meets your hip bones. So your hips are right here. I'm just going right along where the hip and the butt kind of meet. How will you know that you're hitting that spot correctly? Well, you will feel it, okay? It's a tender spot for most folks. So think about where your belt loop might be. That's the spot that we kind of want to bring the ball again, all along the belt loop. Right until you hit the bone on the side of the hip, this is the spot you want to travel from your tailbone all the way along the belt loop till you hit bone here, okay? How do we do this? Good question. The ball goes down on the ground. You're going to go on the ball, but you want to use your hands. You want to use your feet to control this. You don't just want to plop yourself on the ball because that's intense. You want to be able to turn up and down the volume using your hands and feet. So my hands and feet, I'm in this kind of crab position here. I'm going to place my weight down on the ball, and then I'm just cross fibering. Once I get to where the tailbone starts, I don't want to go on the bone. I'm just stopping right before it. And then I'm just pivoting my hips until I get to the side. Okay, I'm feeling hip bone on the side there. And then I'm coming back. So we're traveling all along the top of the glute. Now this is where sensitivity, this is where that awareness comes in. You really want to be able to sense where the tension is and try to follow that. My hands and my feet are controlling this. The first couple times you start to do this, it's going to feel a bit awkward because you just don't have the movement down, and that's okay. But once you kind of build up this awareness, this coordination in this position, you can be a little more precise. So how do we turn the volume up a little bit more when we're hitting along this line? Well, we can start to travel down the side of the glute, not the side of the leg, but the side of the butt muscle. So now I'm kind of doing this C shape. But also what I want to do is I'm going to expose this muscle a little bit more. And the way that I do that is I'm going to rest my right ankle on my left knee as I roll my right hip. This is not for the faint of heart, right? This is not for everybody. So this is just, how do I turn the volume up on this a little bit more? And so I'm doing these circles, the C shape, right along my belt loop area, and then I'm traveling down the side of my glute. Good. Woo. Great. So again, we've just traveled basically top of the glute and then the side of the glute, right? Using our hands and feet to control ourselves, and then again, increasing intensity by putting our weight down on the ball, but also you can place your rolling leg ankle on your resting leg knee. All right, other side now I want you to see. So ball is down onto the mat. My hands and feet are firmly rooted on the ground, and then I roll myself onto the ball. So I'm traveling that belt loop line just along my belt loop or just under it. And there is more tension on this side for me. I'm kind of by my hip, my side hip. And then I'm coming back toward the tailbone, and then back toward the side hip, and back toward the tailbone, rinsing, washing, and repeating. We're going to start to travel down the side of the glute. Ooh, good. So this is this forward, backward movement. And then I'm going back toward the tailbone, so I'm sideways, left and right movement, forward, backward, down the side of the glute. So I'm not going on the body of the glute necessarily, you know, the middle of the glute, middle of the butt cheek. I'm going along the sides. You may notice the border of the butt cheek, because this is really where we get a lot of adhesion, a lot of knots, for lack of better words. It's where the muscle tends to insert or interface with bone. Good. Now you can turn the volume up by placing your rolling side ankle on your resting side knee. Easy does it, yeah? Good. Let's just take a quick post assess. You can put your feet on the ground and then just windshield wiper the knees and just see if you feel any freedom in that range of motion, internal, external rotation of the hips. A lot of people spend a lot of time trying to roll out their IT bands, right? Their IT bands are this, if you follow the seam of my pants here, yeah? It's this thick band of connective tissue that runs along the side of your leg. So from your iliac, right, all the way to your tibia. So this band of connective tissue is the thickest band of connective tissue in your body, and it's almost like these layers of fascia that just run over each other like this, and it's so thick and powerful. And people complain of pain along the IT band, and they try to roll out the IT band, and nothing really happens. And the reason why is there's just not enough blood flow that goes to that connective tissue, and also it's so thick that really by rolling it out, you're not going to infer any grand result. So I'm not here to just tell you limiting things. I'm actually here to tell you solutions too. So there's a muscle called the TFL, right? Tensor, fascia, latae, right? And that kind of, if you feel your hip bone at the side of your body and you run down, you'll feel like it's a hip flexor muscle. It's actually one of the muscles that makes up your glutes, believe it or not, even though it feels like it's kind of more on the front, yeah? So, so it's not at your first belt loop, it's not at your front hip flexors, it's what you might qualify as a side hip flexor, yeah? And you can push it with your thumb and you'll probably feel it. It feels like muscle. So this muscle interfaces with the IT band, yeah? So instead of rolling on the IT band, roll the TFL, and then roll the muscles on the outside of the IT band. Roll the quad, right? And then roll that hamstring, that aspect of the hamstrings that are close to the IT band, but not the IT band. So by working to release, working to mobilize the musculature outside of the IT band, you're much more liable to bring some sort of relief to that area than if you just rolled the IT band. Here we're talking for our next part, we're talking a little bit about isometrics. And we use isometrics. If you do a fitness class, you use isometrics. But isometrics is a really kind of broad term, right? We use it to describe a lot of things. And basically there are, in many fields, two types of isometrics. But I'm here to say there are more, right? So you have yielding isometrics, which is if you were to hold a heavy weight and just work on holding that weight without moving the joint. That is a yielding isometric exercise, right? Isometrics are an exercise where there's no perceived movement in the joints, but you're still working muscles. Yielding isometrics are holding weight or doing exercises like a plank, right? Or yoga, right? Yoga poses are yielding isometrics. You're using your body weight to load the tissue without moving the joints. So isometrics are everywhere. You also have a type of isometrics called overcoming isometrics. And overcoming isometrics are isometrics where you're attempting to move the immovable. And so the the metaphor that I always use is the sword and the stone, right? You're grabbing the hilt of the sword and you're trying to pull it, but it's not coming out of the stone at all, and it won't because you're not the person, right? So that is an overcoming isometric. If you're trying to push on a stone wall, right? You're not going to move that wall. That is an overcoming isometric. If you have a bar loaded up with 500 pounds and you're trying to overhead press that bar from the rack, you're not going to move that bar. That's an overcoming isometric. But in my mind, there are other types of isometrics as well, and they're very, very useful. There are self-imposed isometrics where you're not using something external, right? You're not using a bar. You're not using anything. You're just using your own muscular integrity to create maximum resistance. So if you want to work your biceps, but you don't have a biceps bar, you would simply tighten those muscles and keep your elbow static so we're not moving at all. And you're just squeezing as hard as you can for a specified period of time. And you can do that from multiple positions, right? I call that like a self-imposed isometric. And you can do that with all of your muscles. You know, you can pantomime a chest press standing, tighten the chest muscles, and push and tighten the arms as if you're trying to push a bar that will not move. Self-imposed isometrics. Then we also have what I call gliding isometrics. So it's the same idea, but there is movement. So there's an isometric aspect. So we have a curl. If you don't have weights, but you want to get a workout in, you can still work your curls. You're just creating this isometric resistance in your biceps muscles. I use biceps just because it's the easiest to do here in this context. And it might take you 20 seconds to do a rep. But do 5 of those and tell me how you feel. There is definitely a pump, right? And a perception that you work those muscles. So I call that a gliding isometric because there is this gliding movement. You're trying to make that movement as smooth as possible, whatever it might be, right? And that can be applied to even rows. You know, so there's so many exercises here. Elbows out row, elbows back row. So isometrics can be used in so many ways to substitute equipment. So, okay, one more isometric that I just kind of want to talk about is an isometric that I use a lot also in yoga practice or really any physical practice, and it's what I call a reaching isometric. Let's just use mountain pose as the context, right? Mountain pose is a very basic but fundamental pose in yoga. What you would do is imagine that you have 2 visible midlines to your feet, and you're trying to make those midlines in your feet parallel to one another. Good. You're hugging the muscles of the legs to the bones of the legs. We're drawing the kneecaps onto the legs actively. That's an isometric, yeah? Good. We're tightening, squeezing the muscle with no movement in the joint. That's an isometric. We're going to engage the pelvic floor muscles and the abdominals all around the midsection. Draw the ribs in. That's an isometric. And now finally, we have the reaching aspect. I'm spreading my fingers wide as they go, and I'm reaching my fingertips straight down to the ground, as if I'm trying to make my arms longer. And that's not a momentary awareness while I'm in mountain pose. That is a consistent awareness that I'm trying to maintain. While I reach my fingers down to the ground, I'm actively reaching the crown of my head in the direction away from my fingertips, so up. So muscles of legs on bones of legs, muscles of arms on bones of arms, reaching the feet down into the ground, reaching the crown of the head toward the sky, reaching the fingertips down toward the ground actively, and connecting all of the core muscles. So suddenly, this pretty simple looking pose becomes a pose that if you're fully engaged isometrically, is a pose that you'd only want to sustain for a minute before you want to shake everything off. So you keep doing this, I'll keep talking, and breathe. Breathe and reach and hug the muscles of the legs to the bones of the legs, and breathe. Deep breaths in through the rib cage and belly and back, and release the breath, rib cage, belly, and back. Keep reaching the fingertips down toward the ground and the crown of the head toward the ceiling. Reminder to keep the rib cage drawn in gently. One more time, we're hugging the muscles of the legs to the bones of the legs, kneecaps on the legs. Arms are straight, strong, reaching, muscles of the arms on the bones of the arms. And then finally counter reaching the crown of the head from the fingers one more time and shake it off. So right there, we just have our mountain pose using isometrics. So we go from a passive mountain pose, just basically putting your body in the position, to fully supporting that mountain pose using muscular integrity isometrically. So the whole end game for me is to try to get folks to use their musculature to support their skeletal system in movement and in position. A lot of the time what I see is people sit poses or positions into their skeletal system and joints more, instead of using these girdles of muscle and connective tissue to support the bones in whatever position they're trying to be in. So if you have a strap, that's another prop that I want to grab. And I'm going to continue to just work through our basic poses. Starting to get a little windy here. So you can use a yoga strap or a belt. And so now we're going to take our mountain pose, and I'm going to add an isometric to it. And then we're going to move from mountain pose to a hinge, because all mountain pose is, or hinge is mountain pose bent at the hips. Now, anytime that we're working hinge in a class, I do want to recommend that you might be able to do a 90-degree with your body in a hinge. You might have that mobility available to you, but try playing a little bit higher, just so that you can really focus on the isometric aspect instead of the positional aspect. I'm going to take a strap and I fold it, a yoga strap. If you're just using a regular belt, you might just be just fine with that length. I'm going to hold on to the strap. I have about a fist distance between my pinky side of my hand and my hips. My thumbs are out. So this is one of my favorite isometrics in the context of a yoga class, because it tricks people into drawing the shoulders down their back. It tricks people into good habits. So let's get our feet parallel. Another way of saying that is you want to find the split between your second toe and your third toe, and follow that split up your foot, and you'll notice that's the midline of your foot. If you follow that split of the second and third toe up the foot and the leg, you'll see it's also the midline of your leg. So when finding mountain pose or standing actively, try to get the midlines of the feet and legs parallel to one another, even if it feels like you're turning in a tiny bit. Okay, so we have a hold on the strap, thumbs out, and we'll just go through our cues in our mountain pose. So feet are in position. We're hugging the bones of the legs with the muscles of the legs. This is our first isometric. Yeah, we're drawing the kneecaps on the legs. We're engaging core musculature, so pelvic floor muscles lift, the abdominals wrap, little glute connection too. There's our second isometric. Now, we want to keep our wrist straight, not bend our wrist back, keep our wrist straight, and keep the strap 1 inch off your butt. You're going to try and pull the strap as if you're trying to stretch it. But because the strap is stationary, you can't stretch it. What's going to happen instead is you're going to feel real isometric connection in the shoulders and back muscles. You're going to feel the shoulders draw down the back actively. You're going to feel the collarbone spread. And then you're going to reach the crown of the head actively toward the sky or the ceiling, away from your feet. Yeah. So we also have the muscles of the arms on the bones of the arms. The ribs aren't flaring like this. The ribs are drawing in. Okay, keep breathing deeply here. And without moving the arms, all you're going to do is just bend at the hips. Good. Keep the wrist straight. Try not to let the hands bend back. You're reaching the knuckles away from you. Good. You're pulling on that strap to draw the shoulders down the back. You're hugging the bones of the legs with the muscles of the legs. And you're reaching your spine long. Good. So we have one more isometric. Stay in your hinge as I cue you through this. One more isometric that I want you to focus on while in hinge. Keep breathing deeply. And what you want to imagine doing is you want to imagine that you're trying to spread the floor between your feet wider. It's almost your feet aren't moving from the mat, but you're trying to drag your feet out. Almost as if you're trying to slide your feet outward here. So again, you're holding on to your strap in your hinge, breathing deep, keep breathing deep. Take breaks if you need it. You're in that hinge and you're just trying to make the floor between your feet wider as you're also pulling on your strap, hugging the bones of the legs with the muscles of the legs, hugging the bones of the arms with the muscles of the arms, core connection. Now, let's do the opposite. Let's try to make the floor between the feet smaller, shorter. Now we're engaging the inner legs in our hinge. And release. So we have isometrics in our mountain pose. We also have isometrics in our hinge, yeah? And so these isometrics, do they make the positions more perceivably difficult? Yes, especially at the beginning when you're just learning to integrate them. But there's a real benefit to adding these isometrics. The benefit is that you're, again, using the musculature of the body to support the skeletal system. So a lot of these positions that are perceivably unpleasant to people are unpleasant because they're loading up poses and positions into their joints instead of their musculature. Also, when you're doing isometrics, you are working on toning and strengthening your muscles more than if you're just passively sitting in a position. Moving to our next basic position that I often focus on, we're going to focus on a plank, okay? I did not do this in class yesterday, but I'm going to do it here since it's video. We're going to place a block between our thighs for this one. You can do this in standing positions as well. We're going to take just a standard plank here. And we're just going to bring in how isometrics, once again, improve our plank, make it also more perceivably challenging, and also more efficiently work the muscles that we need to use in order to successfully do a plank. So Basically, all a plank is our mountain pose that we just did. Not the hinge, but the mountain pose, the standing pose, horizontal. So if you're doing all the same engagements in a plank as you're doing in a mountain pose, you've got a pretty solid plank going on. Let's set up all fours position. I have the block cued between my legs already, so that the narrow end of the block is between my thighs. Good. I'm spreading my fingers as wide as I can. My index fingers are parallel to one another, as if they're on kind of a mini train track. Here comes our first isometric, setting up our plank. We're again hugging the bones of the arms with the muscles of the arms. Yeah? So we're really straightening out the arms hard. Another isometric worth showing you in plank is what I call 3 circles. You're trying to grab the ground with the outer border of the palm. You're trying to grab the ground with the outer border of the middle fingers here. And then you're trying to grab the ground simultaneously with the tips of the fingers. So it's these 3 circles that you're trying to grab the ground with in plank. What this is doing, you'll notice, when you try to quote unquote grab the ground, is this is engaging the muscles of the forearms to help support the wrists. Yeah? So we're grabbing the ground, we're hugging the bones of the arms with the muscles of the arms. Yeah? We're drawing the shoulders down the back actively, and I'm reaching the top of my head that away. Now, I'm going to try to straighten out one leg at a time, even though I have a block. Boom. Yeah? Boom. Second leg straightens out. Take a look at your feet. You again want to try to get the midlines of your feet and legs parallel to one another. You're going to actively squeeze the block with your inner thighs. And you're again hugging the bones of the legs with the muscles of the legs. So we have isometrics in the hands, isometrics in the arms, the back muscles, and the legs. The plank is a huge leg exercise. If you can really straighten your legs strong, you're doing an excellent plank. And now for the final isometric, keep working it. Take a break if you need. You want to try to shorten the ground between your hands and feet without changing the position of your body. So it's this isometric drag of the hands and the feet toward each other. Bonus points if you could try to drag the right hand toward the left foot and the left hand toward the right foot. You can see me visibly shaking doing this, because what this is doing is this is supercharging the whole front side of my body in the plank. So I'm just giving a few more seconds for you to experiment with this. Try around 20 seconds. From your plank position, good straight and strong legs and arms. Drawing the feet and hands toward each other. Muscles of legs and arms on bones of legs and arms. Heels and top of head reach away from each other. And again, that isometric drag of the hands and the feet without actually moving the hands and the feet. Bonus points if you can really draw the kneecaps of the legs onto the legs. Here comes the sun. And release it. Good. So here we are. We have our mountain pose. We have our hinge. We have our plank. So I'd like to work lunge. We're going to work runner's lunge. It looks like this. The reason we're working runner's lunge is because I think that this is the ultimate blueprint for a lot of our standing lunging positions. You know, this bent knee lunge, right? Warrior positions. Yeah? If you can do a runner's lunge, quote unquote correctly, right? Or with integrity, then you can do all of those other poses effectively. Also, I love runner's lunge for the kind of obvious reason that this is a human being mid-stride. Bang, 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 which is a pinnacle of movement, is humans running. So we're going to do this runner's lunge through the purview of isometrics. Excuse me. I'm going to start with my right leg as the work leg. The work leg is the back leg, because that is the leg that is doing the majority of the work. And then we're going to bring in the instances where isometrics help our lunge. Let's start in a kind of wide-footed mountain pose. So the midlines of my feet are about shoulder width apart. I'm setting up that really powerful mountain pose, yeah? And then I'm going to step back with my right foot. So I'm going to take a big, bold step back. Now, I'm not going into my lowest lunge. Reason being, I really want to focus on the isometric aspect here, okay? Now, you can use that strap behind you in the same exact way that, that we do in mountain pose and in hinge, but I really want to focus what's happening in the legs here. So people don't like lunge because they're not using their muscles to support it. They're putting it in their knees, so people end up really finding lunge to be unpleasant. Let's try to dispel that. So from our lunge position, the main leg I want you to focus on is the back leg. You've heard me use the phrase, hug the bones of the leg with the muscles of the leg. And what I mean by that is, don't be passive with that back leg. I want you to straighten that leg so much that you feel the kneecap drawing onto the leg, and most importantly, you feel the glute engage. Then think about putting your front knee over your front ankle. Then think about drawing the shoulders down the back and connecting the core. Then think about, just for the sake of this practice now, reaching your fingertips down to the ground, hugging the muscles or the bones of the arm with the muscles of the arm. Chin in, neck long. But first things first, get that leg straight and strong for your work leg. Feel that glute work. So we have isometrics in the back leg. We have isometrics happening in the core, floor muscles, and the abdominal girdle. We have isometrics happening in the back and chest, drawing our shoulders down our back. And we have isometrics in the arms, this reaching isometric, this trying to touch the ground with our fingertips. We're trying to make our arms longer than they'll ever go. Come out of it for a second and shake it off. We're going to add our final isometric here. This final isometric in lunge is widely applicable to our other lunge positions, like our warrior positions and even triangle and extended wide angle in yoga. Shake it all off. Same side. Big step back, right foot. Good. Lifting that heel because we're running, remember? Yeah? Leg is as straight will go. Glute engages. Abs engage isometrically. Knee over ankle. Muscles of the arms hug the bones of the arms. Reaching isometric toward the ground. Reaching isometric of the crown of the head toward the sky or ceiling. And then what I want you to think about is, without moving your feet on the ground, I want you to think about dragging your feet toward one another, just like we did with our plank. Ooh. Breathe deeply through the belly, yes, but through the rib cage and mid-back. Hold 20 seconds. You're actively drawing the feet toward one another, and you're going to feel this lift in your lunge when you do that. And release it. Bang. So there's that isometric, that overcoming isometric, that trying to pull the feet toward one another, that will help engage other muscles, right? We're engaging our hips and our adductors. We're engaging much more of our pelvic girdle, right? To really support us in that lunge position when you draw the feet toward one another, on top of all the other isometric actions in our lunge. Now you know why I put this on video, right? So let's do the other side. This time my left leg's the work leg. Here we go. Set up a mountain pose. This is an excellent kind of blueprint for everything. Then we're going to step back, left foot. Doesn't have to be your deepest lunge. I see a lot of people bringing the heel down, then you lose the whole musculature of the lower leg. Lift the heel, hug the kneecap to the leg. Hips are even. Feel that glute work. Draw again, kneecap to leg. Hug the bones of the back leg with the musculature of the back leg. Good. Shoulders down the back. Hug the bones of the arm with the musculature of the arms. That reaching isometric of the fingers down toward the ground and the crown of the head toward the sky, away from each other. There's real connection all throughout the body. We're using the body as a single unit, a net. And then we're going to draw the feet toward one another to create a little more lift in connection in our runner's lunge. Again, if you're in warrior, you draw the feet toward each other without actually moving the feet. 10 more seconds. Hug the bones of the leg, the muscles of the leg. Same with the arms. Core connection. Gliding isometric. And release it. Bang. So don't be discouraged if you're not remembering or doing all of these things at once. These are kind of little levers and switches that you can toggle while you're in the position. So it doesn't have to be done all of the time. Just think of them kind of as little tools that you can bring in to enhance whatever position you're in and make it more efficient. So I say instead of doing these poses for 4-minute stretches or over and over again in a flow, much more effective to actually fully engage the body, right? Really use those supporting, really use those working muscles to support the pose, support the skeleton and the joints in that pose. Train smarter, not harder. So, or sometimes training smarter is a little bit harder, but it's more worth it in the end because you're actually spending less time. Just doesn't have the same ring. So, okay. Let's work our dead bug here, okay? Dead bug is a rather morbid name for a great exercise. This is an abdominal exercise, pretty basic. Encourages good habits though. So it'll make perfect sense when you see the position that I strike. So what I'm going to try to do with dead bug is I'm going to get my femurs somewhat parallel to the ground, perpendicular to the ground to begin with. And then I want to try to get my shins somewhat parallel to the ground beneath me. I'm going to rest my head on the ground first. And then the next step for our dead bug, I'm going to do an isometric dead bug. So dead bug is usually something like this with the head up, okay? But we're going to do an isometric. So we're going to place the palms of our hands right on the shelf of the knees, just where the thighs and the knees kind of meet, yeah? If you've worked with me, you know this, especially outside of Rancho La Puerta. This is a big one that I love. So I'm going to have you try to straighten your arms. You are going to straighten your arms. You're going to draw your shoulders down your back. You can keep your head on the ground for now. We're going to go into several isometrics to prepare. You want to use your abdominal muscles to try to imprint your low back, your entire low back into the mat or the ground beneath you, yeah? You'll start to feel the abdominals engage. You're going to do the same thing with the ribs. You want to try to draw the ribs down. Boom, already you're getting some work. You're going to draw your shoulders down your back. Place your palms on your knees. You don't have to lift your head yet, But what you can do is, without bending your elbows, we want no bend in the elbows, we want the shoulders down the back. You're going to draw your knees into your palms, and you're going to press your palms into your knees. Don't forget to breathe fully and completely through the ribs and through the belly. Keep that pressure consistent and constant. Knees into hands, hands into knees. Arms are straight, so you're hugging the bones of the arms with the muscles of the arms. And this is intense. You're also still working on imprinting your ribs and low back into the mat beneath you. And then if we really want to up the ante, you just lift your entire head and neck. Keep pressing. And release. Woo. Windshield wiper the knees left to right. So no perceived movement in the joints aside from that shaking, right? But no perceived movement in really any of these positions once you're in them. But there's isometrics everywhere in all of our most basic positions. And in my opinion, if you're not using isometrics to support the positions, then in a way, you're kind of doing a cheap impression of the pose. But look, it's okay. I mean, this is information that's useful to arm ourselves with so that we can consistently enhance our practice all the time. So let's do this dead bug one more time, okay? I'm going to cue you through it from the ground up. So you're going to lie down on your back. We're going to get the feet flat on the ground to begin with. Let's just focus on shoulders down the back. Before we bring the legs up, before we do anything, work on imprinting your entire low back and your ribs into the floor, ground, or mat beneath you. We're feeling that abdominal connection right off the bat. Now we'll lift up one leg at a time into our dead bug. We'll place our palms on the shelf of our knees. Really work on straightening the arms actively and drawing the shoulders down the back. And then applying that isometric pressure, knees to hands, hands to knees, working against each other. Knees to hands, hands to knees, working against each other, not in waves, but rather as one consistent pressure, pushing hands into knees, knees into hands. Welcome to lift up the head now, if you wish. Just keep the chin tucked and the neck long. Reminder to keep the shoulders down the back as you're doing this. Keep breathing deeply through the belly, back, and ribs. Arms are straight and strong. Good. Isometric pressure, knees to hands, hands to knees, 5 more seconds. Shoulders down the back, arms are straight, neck is long, core muscles are engaged. Breath is through the belly, back, and sides, knees to hands, hands to knees, and release.